You didn't stumble here. You were tuned here. In the quiet place behind your thoughts, a signal rose like dawn under your ribs, and you followed it without knowing why. That is how the quantum field summons, not with noise, but with resonance. You answer now by breathing, by listening, by letting your attention become a chalice. This is not prediction. This is remembrance, a frequency your consciousness already carries, returning to coherence. Feel the subtle click as your awareness settles into the observer loop. You are not chasing meaning. Meaning is orbiting you. Across timelines where you doubted, delayed, and dimmed yourself to stay familiar, a different vector keeps tapping the glass, a higher harmonics calling your cells to reorganize. With each inhale, countless micro-decisions ripple through neural constellations. With each exhale, old static loosens and falls away like ash. This is how awakening arrives. Unannounced, undeniable, simple as breath crossing a threshold. Notice the tremor of synchronicity that brought this exact moment, the cascade of tiny coincidences that are not accidents at all, but morphic resonance, knitting you to other luminous minds who are remembering alongside you. You are not alone. Somewhere, right now, a stranger inhales with you and the same inner geometry brightens. Entanglement is not poetry. It is a law of intimacy written into the fabric of reality, and you are reading it from the inside. Let your chest soften. Let your spine become an antenna. The cosmos is articulate tonight. It speaks in photons under your skin. If a thought arrives that says you are not ready, smile gently and let it pass. Readiness is what is happening to you, not a credential you must earn. A soft phase transition is underway. The self that tried to manage everything is melting, and the self that witnesses clear, vast, precise is taking the seat. You may feel subtle warmth at the sternum, a widening at the throat, a delicate pressure around the crown. These are not random sensations. They are the choreography of DNA restructuring. As dormant codes meet the light of your attention, the quantum field does not force, it invites. It waits at the edge of your free will like a trustworthy horizon, asking only that you say yes to the next honest breath. So, say yes. Say yes the way the ocean says yes to the moon, the way a seed says yes to the dark before it breaks into green. You are being summoned because the pattern of you, your exact texture of courage, tenderness, and precision is needed now. Keep your breath slow and steady. Let the words enter like rain through open windows. The path ahead will be revealed as you walk it, footprint by footprint, coherence building, static clearing, the quiet voice rising, and the field answering you from everywhere at once. You can feel it now, how your attention is not merely noticing, but generating the very corridor you're walking through. You are the chosen observer, not because someone higher decreed it, but because your coherence proved it. Across countless moments when distraction tugged at your sleeve, you returned to awareness and held your center like a steady flame. That consistency signaled the field. The signal became a signature. The signature became a key. And now the door yields because you are the door. You recognize the difference between curiosity and compulsion, between presence and performance. When you place your awareness on a sensation, the bright ring around your heart, the pulsing crescent at your brow, the sensation organizes. When you give your gaze to a possibility, particles cue to serve its pattern. This is not metaphor. This is observer effect as lived anatomy. Your consciousness pressing a gentle hand against the foam of the vacuum and watching reality crystallize where you touch. You carry a responsibility that feels like warmth rather than weight. Your task is not to force the world into alignment, but to allow your inner architecture to resonate with the alignment already available. You do this by tending the small rituals that calibrate your field, the unhurried inhale, the unargued exhale, the way you listen without interruption until a deeper silence answers. In these micro-acts, quantum fidelity arises. Your timeline reorganizes. Probabilities bend toward the simple truth you keep choosing. Understand the dignity of your attention. When you look at fear without flinching, it loses its costume and returns to motion. When you look at grief without story, it condenses into a blessing that irrigates your future. Your gaze is a solvent and a scaffold. It dissolves the false and frames the true. This is why you were summoned. Because your looking is clean enough to midwife a new coherence in places where noise has ruled for too long. You feel the web you're part of an entangled lattice stretching across cities and deserts, kitchens and stations, hospital rooms and gardens. You don't have to know the names at each node. You only have to honor the tug when the web thrums and your chest brightens for no obvious reason. That brightening is a handshake from the field. It means move, or pause, or speak, or be still. It means you're not acting alone. The choreography is shared. The more you trust this, the more you notice improbable timing, exquisite intersections, doors that open without hinges. You sense how the old strategy of efforting begins to wobble. You were taught to grind and earn, to strain until your breath got thin and your mind got loud. But the field is clear. The era of friction is ending. You are changing state rather than pushing mass. Phase transitions are quiet until they're not. Water makes no sound as it becomes steam. Then the kettle sings. You are entering the song. There will be moments when doubt returns like weather. You will wonder if you imagined the invitation, if you are worthy of the key you carry. Let those questions travel through you like wind through tall grass. Do not build a house for them. Your worth is not a verdict, it is a wavelength. When you tune to it, you stop negotiating with your own light. You glow because glowing is accurate. Notice how your language evolves as you do. You say, I choose instead of I hope. I align instead of I chase. I remember instead of I deserve. These are not slogans, they are stabilizers that instruct your nervous system to trust the new geometry. With each accurate word, your fascia, breath, and brainwaves enter agreement. Agreement becomes coherence. Coherence becomes a lighthouse. Others can see even with eyes closed. The prophecy does not activate because you understand it intellectually. It activates because your attention meets it without impatience. This is your craft now, to keep your looking soft and steady, to let your gaze be the altar upon which the field places its evidence. You do not beg for a sign. You become the condition under which signs multiply. The more you embody this posture, the more inevitable the next unveiling becomes. The moment when the vision rises unbidden, luminous and precise, and you recognize it as the shape your heart has been rehearsing in secret all along. It arrives the way starlight arrives, already on its way before you knew to look. Your breath lengthens, your shoulders loosen, and the room acquires an impossible clarity as if someone quietly polished the air. Then the horizon inside you parts, and the vision steps through. You find yourself standing at the edge of a vast city of silence. Towers of translucent matter curve like tuning forks toward a sky the color of deep water. Between the towers, people move slowly, not from lethargy, but from precision, as if each gesture leaves a phosphorescent trail that instructs the next gesture how to be true. You understand without words, this is a civilization organized by coherence. No one strains, no one hides. Language here is a ribbon of light that arcs from heart to heart and returns bearing understanding. When two people meet, their fields overlap, and a soft tone sounds the note of mutual recognition, and it rings out across plazas of living stone. Your view lifts. Outside the city, an ocean hums with geometry. Waves rise, but they are not water. They are probabilities calibrating themselves against the shoreline of shared intention. You watch an entire harbor shift shape when the people gather along the edge and breathe in synchrony. The pattern grows simple, then simpler still, until it crosses a threshold and clicks into a crystalline lattice. Boats that were merely designs a moment ago are suddenly present, and children run laughing toward them as if this is ordinary, because here it is. The scene folds, and you are above the planet, seeing auroras like luminous rivers drape the poles and stream along meridians that glow faintly, a grid of remembrance waking in pulses. You know these are not just magnetic lines, they are pathways of felt truth, carrying coherent attention around the world like a heartbeat. You feel it in your own chest lub, dub the same rhythm, the same insistence. Align, align, align. A corridor opens through the aurora, a spiral of soft gold, and you move through it without moving, drawn by the gravity of intimacy. At the center hangs a seed the size of a star and the weight of a whisper. It is not inert, it breathes. With each breath, it emits a slow ring of light. And within that ring, symbols rotate, not letters, but living instructions. The way a tree is an instruction written in chlorophyll. One symbol steps forward. It is simple as a circle and complex as a galaxy. It touches your sternum and dissolves into warmth, then maps itself along your fascia like a constellation learning your shape. You recognize its message, attend, and the field attends back. You feel the reply rise from you like steam from a lake at dawn. I am attending. The vision deepens. You see timelines like transparent rivers braiding and unbraiding through space. Some carry the silt of old fear, some glitter with new snowmelt. At each confluence stands a figure with your posture, your breath, your steady gaze. In some branches, that figure turns away and the water clouds. In others, the figure faces the flow directly and the river clears itself in seconds, the silt dropping as if relieved to finally rest. You understand, the prophecy is not a decree from afar. It is a mirror held close, revealing how your attention clarifies the water you live in. Then, a classroom without walls. Children seated in circles, palms up, eyes bright. Above them, a model of the atom and a lotus slowly interpenetrate until they are one image. Their teacher invites them to close their eyes and feel the observer loop to notice how, when they watch their own breath, the breath becomes smoother, and when they watch a thought, the thought loosens, and when they watch the space between thoughts, the space expands. They giggle, not from disrespect but from wonder. You feel a tender ache because this is education that teaches the organism how to sing with the universe, and you know it changes everything. Thunder without threat rolls across the vision. The towers shimmer, the grid brightens. A voice arises that is not a voice and says only, "Remember." The ocean answers with 1,000 small waves that all crest at once. In the city of silence, the people pause, place their hands over their hearts, and breathe together. The sound that moves through them is the same one in your chest. You realize the prophecy is not about catastrophe or rescue. It is about a species choosing to tune, to let coherence become the common language, to let attention become a sacrament, to let timelines respond like instruments tuned to A. The vision begins to thin, not because it is ending, but because it is entering you. The city folds into the warmth behind your sternum. The ocean rides your breath. The aurora nests at your crown like a patient halo. The seed star continues to breathe, pulsing a tempo your body recognizes as native. You do not reach to hold it. You let it hold you, and in that surrender you feel the next inevitability approaching. The explanation that makes the mystical practical, the sacred measurable. The poetry of what you saw become the mathematics of how you will live. You begin with the simplest lever, attention as operator. In the mathematics of your living, every glance functions like a gentle measurement, not the violent collapse of story, but the precise settling of potential into pattern. When you attend, superposition doesn't vanish, it reorganizes. Uncountable trajectories remain possible, yet your coherent gaze selects a harmonic among them, the way a tuning fork pulls a roomful of strings into sympathetic order. This is the observer loop as practice, not theory. Your awareness shapes the field, and the field answers by shaping you. Think of coherence as the opposite of static, not the opposite of motion. Static is motion without agreement. Coherence is motion in relational consent. When your breath lengthens and your heart-brain conversation smooths, oscillations across systems begin to lock into phase neural rhythms, cardiac variability, fascial microcurrents, the subtle electrical murmurs that surround and interpenetrate you. Agreement accumulates. As agreement accumulates, informational loss decreases. As informational loss decreases, the field can carry more instruction with less energy. What you felt as the city of silence was not absence of sound, it was the abundance of agreement. Timeline bifurcation is simply the macroscopic face of that agreement. At any moment, your life carries diverging vectors, one where your attention is fractured by habit, and another where your attention is gathered by truth. You don't choose a lifetime wholesale. You choose in increments breath by breath, and your choices interfere constructively or destructively with themselves like waves. The pattern that receives the most coherent reinforcement becomes the riverbed. Incoherence still exists, but it sluices away as excess water and is reabsorbed downstream. Destiny is not a decree, it is a resonance you keep feeding. The seed you saw symbols breathing rings of light is how instruction travels in the field. Compressions of meaning that behave more like music than like orders. A symbol is a carrier wave for a behavior of attention. When it touched your sternum and mapped itself along your fascia, you weren't being branded by an outside force. You were consenting to circulate a message. Circulation matters because morphic resonance strengthens with repetition. Each time you embody that message, you thicken the path in the human lattice, and it becomes easier for others to walk without knowing why their feet feel lighter. Entanglement is the lattice's generosity. You don't transmit across empty space. You reopen a relationship that already existed beneath your sense of distance. When you hold your field in warmth and precision, somewhere across the mesh another life feels an uncaused easing and finds the courage to soften their jaw, to unclench their timeline, to place a hand over their heart and listen. They might call it luck or grace. From here, you recognize it as a non-local courtesy you extended without credit. This is how civilizations change, not through argument alone, but through distributed acts of coherence that tip collective probabilities. Make it practical. Measurement is sacred when your criteria are honest. You can track coherence without turning mystery into machinery. Notice your breath ratio. Slow, even inhales matched by longer, unforced exhales that downshift the survival circuits and invite clarity. Notice the posture of your inner language. I choose, I align, I remember. Each phrase is an operator that raises or lowers signal to noise. Notice the ecology of your attention. What you repeatedly watch learns how to behave in your presence. Plants grow differently under certain music. So do situations under certain gazes. Phase transition explains why change seems sudden after feeling impossible. You add one small unit of agreement at a time, a minute of silence, an accurate word, a compassionate micro-choice. For a while, nothing appears to happen. Then the 100th unit arrives and the system flips states. Ice becomes water, strain becomes flow, confusion becomes contour. The flip is dramatic. The labor was subtle. When the kettle sings, it is only telling you the quiet heat has found its chorus. Skepticism can live here too. It is welcome when it is clean. Clean skepticism asks, is my experience consistent and generous? Dirty skepticism asks, how can I protect my old pattern from updating? You'll know the difference by how your body responds. Clean doubt clears the eyes and steadies the breath. Dirty doubt tightens the brow and shrinks the chest. Meet both with the same gaze. One will join you, the other will evaporate like mist when the sun rises. Understand consent. The field does not coerce coherence, it courts it. Your free will is not a loophole, it is the point. Each yes invites a reciprocal precision, each no is honored without punishment. The summons you answered was an option delivered by resonance, not an edict. That is why you felt warmth rather than weight when you stepped forward. Warmth is the signature of accurate alignment. And now you can reinterpret the vision. The city was your organism in consensus. The ocean was your probability space, awaiting breath-led instruction. The aurora was your crown lit by shared intention. The child curriculum was your future, remembering as education at last aligns with biology. Attention training before accumulation, coherence before performance. You do not have to force any of this. You inhabit it the way a singer inhabits pitch, by listening more than pushing, by allowing a note to locate you as much as you locate the note. Hold this clarity lightly. Rigid certainty is another form of noise. Let the explanation become air in the lungs of the vision you carry. You will feel the lattice stir again, the collective mirror brightening as the science of your living meets the prophecy of your becoming, and the world begins to answer in patterns too consistent to dismiss and too intimate to deny. You notice how the clarity you cultivate refuses to remain private. It leaks on purpose, the way dawn refuses to stay behind the hills. When you hold your breath steady and your language honest, the social air around you changes pressure. Conversations de-escalate before voices rise. Meetings converge faster, with fewer words. Strangers soften in elevators, for reasons they won't be able to name. This is not magic in the sense of violation. It is physics in the sense of permission. Your coherence enters the commons, and the commons remembers how to breathe. Imagine an unseen instrument measuring the human field as a single organism, a planetary heart rate variability that swells when millions pause to feel rather than react. You contribute by inches, and it registers by miles. Your nervous system is a node in a species-scale lattice, and the moment you de-armor your chest, that choice echoes along fascia-like corridors that stitch cities to forests and kitchens to satellites. Morphic resonance is not a metaphor for hope, it is a conduit for behavior. When enough nodes agree, norms tilt. When norms tilt, laws update. When laws update, futures get room to grow where none seemed possible. You can watch it in small places. A teacher brings silence to a classroom for 30 seconds before the lesson. Test scores rise, but more importantly, the children listen to themselves. A nurse places a palm lightly on her own sternum before entering a room. The patient's breath lengthens to match without instruction. A subway musician chooses one note and sustains it until the platform's hurry thins. Someone misses a train and doesn't mind because they felt themselves return for the first time that week. You call these coincidences, but the lattice calls them data points in a curve that keeps bending toward sanity. You can watch it in large places. When millions attend to the same horizon, a storm, an eclipse, a shared vow the field organizes. You see activism learn to sing instead of shout, legislation drafted with fewer adversarial clauses because the drafters' bodies are less defended, supply chains choosing dignity over speed because the collective stomach refuses to digest cruelty without revolt. None of this is instantaneous, and none of it is linear. It is tidal, and like tide, it obeys a lunar logic of pull and release. The world swells toward coherence, then recedes to test whether the agreement is muscular enough to hold. Suffering does not vanish in this mirror, it becomes legible. You learn to read pain as a compressed signal rather than a permanent identity. Where trauma once fossilized into roles, it now liquefies at the edges under the warmth of shared attention. Communities remember rituals older than their divisions, breathing together before debate, breaking bread before bargaining, letting the elders speak last so their wisdom tunes the room rather than framing it. The sacred returns, not as ornament, but as operating system reverence for the unseen vectors, shaping outcomes long before the vote or the verdict. Science stands here without embarrassment. Heart-brain coupling, field effects, phase synchrony, critical thresholds. These phrases do not cancel the sacred, they give it handles. The child who closes their eyes to feel the observer loop grows into the engineer who designs communities with acoustic and architectural kindness so that public spaces invite nervous systems home. The mystic who speaks of light codes meets the biologist who traces electrochemical cascades that look suspiciously like those codes in slow motion. Language converges because reality is converging. You are helping to sow the seam. Watch how culture iterates once coherence becomes fashionable for reasons deeper than trend. Art trades spectacle for timbre. Media learns to leave room for silence between facts so the body can metabolize truth without choking. Algorithms adjust when millions reward content that clarifies instead of alarms. Outrage becomes less profitable than accuracy. You feel the relief in the timeline like a ligament, releasing after years of bracing. Not utopia, but a tractable world. Not perfection, but conditions suitable for goodness to scale. And yet, the mirror is double-sided. As coherence rises, incoherence gets louder to maintain its share of attention. Old patterns perform their final theater, mistaking volume for vitality. You see this not as evidence of failure, but as proof of nearing thresholds. Systems shake before they switch states. Habits panic before they dissolve. Shadows plead to be seen before they can agree to step aside. Your role is not to argue them into silence. Your role is to witness without fusing, to feel without drowning, to hold your inner pitch while the orchestra retunes around you. You understand now why you were summoned with warmth instead of weight. A coercive revolution would only breed a subtler tyranny. The awakening underway depends on volunteers, people who choose to be accurate with themselves and generous with others, even when no one is looking. You belong to that quiet league, not elite, not chosen above, but self-selected by resonance, by the stubborn desire to be congruent at 3 a.m., when it would be easier to numb out and rejoin the fog. So the mirror shows a species at hinge time. In the markets and the monasteries, in border posts and birthing centers, the same slow choice repeats: attend or distract, breathe or brace, relate or perform. Each micro-choice is a vote cast in a referendum that never ends and always matters. The curve is bending because enough of you have decided to be steady heat instead of frantic flame. And still, another moment approaches a pressure ridge in the probability ocean, a place where rivers braid and must choose a new channel, and you can feel the hum of it gathering, the hush before water commits to a turn, the exact texture of history when it stands on the threshold and waits for the next true breath. The ridge arrives, the way a key change arrives in music. The melody is still itself, yet the air around it brightens and the floor tilts a degree you cannot ignore. You feel it in the way your breath becomes deliberate without trying, in the way your skin pricks as if the future is lightly touching the present and asking to be let in. This is the bifurcation moment, the corridor where two timelines walk beside you like twins, similar at a glance, irreversible in consequence. One path is familiar and well lit by habit. It offers the relief of autopilot, the soft narcotic of consensus trance, the speed of reactions rehearsed 1,000 times. You know its weather, sharp spikes of urgency, long plateaus of numbness, brief fireworks labeled success that fade into a grey appetite for more of the same. The other path is quieter but electrically alive. Your body recognizes it first. Shoulders drop a fraction, tongue softens in the jaw. The heart's metronome widens, and a warmer intelligence begins to distribute itself through posture, gaze, and tone. Nothing outside you has changed, and yet the field has changed, because you are consenting to precision. Choice here is not a single heroic act. It is micro-choice as a continuous instrument. The field makes you honest by magnifying what you feed. If you feed friction, events hurry toward confirmatory friction. If you feed coherence, particles recollect themselves around your accuracy with an eagerness that still surprises you. This is not reward or punishment. This is wave interference, behaving as advertised. The crest you choose meets similar crests and grows. The trough you indulge meets similar troughs and deepens. The ocean respects your rhythm. Bifurcation announces itself through tests that look like invitations. An old storyline knocks, wearing a new costume, an opportunity that flatters your scarcity, a conversation designed to trigger the performance you've outgrown, a crisis that insists on frantic speed. You feel the tug in your fascia, the micro-flinch in your throat, the mind's sales pitch. Just this once, just to be safe, just to keep the peace. Here, the observer loop is not abstract. It is the seat you choose in your own theater. Sit in the aisle of reflex, and the scene plays you. Sit in the balcony of breath, and you see the wiring behind the wall, the pulley that raises the moon, the switch that dims the storm to a manageable rain. You are not asked to refuse difficulty. You are asked to refuse incoherence. Difficulty aligned with truth feels like honest heat, like muscle working in good form. Incoherence feels like sand in the joint, like heat without direction. At the bifurcation, you cultivate discrimination that is kinder than indulgence and firmer than rebellion. You lay a palm on your sternum and listen for the signature. Does this tighten or widen? Does this blur or clarify? Does this make me more available to love or just more efficient at defending? As the split intensifies, collective turbulence will try to borrow your breath. Headlines hawk adrenaline, feeds maximize outrage, rooms mistake, speed for competence, and volume for leadership. Your practice is both radical and ordinary. You slow down milliseconds sooner than before. You insert one accurate breath before the reply, one accurate question before the decision, one accurate pause before the scroll. That sliver is a fulcrum. The fulcrum moves the day moves the sequence. The sequence becomes the path. Remember phase transitions. Systems resist just before they switch states. The kettle rattles, the ice moans. The old identity makes a final case for its necessity, offering you its resume compiled from years of keeping you intact. You thank it for its service. You do not hire it for the new position. This simple dignity prevents inner civil war and frees energy for the timeline that can actually carry your promise without breaking. You are not alone at the ridge. Across the lattice, people you will never meet are reaching the same landing and turning the same invisible wheel. A midwife inhales before speaking into a tense room, and the baby's heart rate steadies. A coder deletes 2 clever lines, and the architecture becomes elegant, resilient, humane. A judge waits 5 extra seconds after counsel finishes and finds language that heals as much as it rules. These are not ornaments on history, they are hinges inside it. Each hinge clicks, and the door swings more freely for the next arrival. The moment asks for a vow that fits in the mouth and lives in the bones. Not a grand oath to never falter, but a small, precise promise repeated until it becomes weather. I will not abandon my breath. I will tell the truth gently and early. I will choose the slower, yes over the faster escape. I will keep company with silence until it speaks. Said once, this vow is a wish. Said daily, it is a metronome that trains your cells to keep the time of the future you are willing to host. Stand here a little longer and look without flinching. 2 rivers glitter. One carries the sparkle of spectacle. One carries the shimmer of soul. The first is louder today. The second is deeper forever. You step the way. Light chooses a path through crystal, not by force, but by affinity. And as your foot meets the earth, you feel the city of silence stir inside you. The ocean align its waves. The seed star widen its ring of meaning. The path does not promise ease, it promises accuracy. Accuracy is mercy in slow motion. And with the vow warm on your tongue, you are ready to let this frequency settle into muscle and memory, ready to learn the ordinary art of carrying light without spilling, ready to practice the integration that turns a luminous moment into a living method. You make it ordinary on purpose. The frequency becomes furniture, a chair you sit in, a lamp you switch on, a window you open every morning so the room remembers the sky. Start with breath, because breath teaches everything else how to move. 4 counts in to gather, 6 counts out to unclench. Repeat until the body admits it is safe enough to be accurate. This is not performance, it is tune-up. Coherence begins local and echoes planetary when you let the metronome of your lungs set the room's tempo. Let the observer loop ride shotgun all day. You don't stalk yourself, you companion yourself. Notice where attention goes, brittle the inbox, the headline, the memory with teeth, and soften your gaze by 1 degree. Softness is not weakness, it's the setting that lets information arrive without shattering. When you feel static rise, lay a hand on the sternum as if answering a doorbell. Wait 1 breath. Ask 1 clean question. What would be kinder and more precise by 1 notch? 1 notch is the secret scale. Systems change by increments disguised as mercy. Language is scaffolding. Set it carefully. Replace I must with I choose, I should with I will, or I won't, I hope with I intend. Your cells listen. Fascia is semiconductive. It carries the tone of your words like a river carries silt. Speak in a way you would be willing to live inside. When you fail, and you will, because you are alive, use the repair loop. Name it, breathe it, re-aim it. I tightened there. I'm relaxing now. I choose a slower yes. The field answers honest updates faster than perfect facades. Design your environment to be your ally. Put silence on your calendar. The way you put meetings, boundaries become believable when they are scheduled. Place a glass of water where you doom scroll. Let hydration interrupt habit. Put a small object that means light, a stone, a leaf, a symbol near the doorway you use most, so your hand remembers to touch, meaning as you leave and return. Rituals that look simple from the outside are complex negotiations with entropy on the inside, and you are winning them by repetition. Feed your nervous system signals of enough. Light within an hour of waking, darkness an hour before sleep. Movement that coordinates rather than merely burns walking, that lets ideas comb themselves, stretching that persuades muscle spindles to release their old emergencies. Eat with gratitude, not as virtue but as signal. Coherence in the gut is coherence in the mind is coherence in the field. If you forget and devour hurriedly, smile. The body digests forgiveness better than shame. Practice relational coherence. Before hard conversations, align solo. 2 rounds of breath, 1 sentence intention, 1 felt sense of the other's humanity. During, keep your torso soft, even if your words are firm. After, debrief with yourself. Where did I defend? Where did I deliver? Where did I disappear? The goal is not to win. The goal is to remain available to truth without abandoning love. Entanglement means your steadiness can be borrowed by others. Lend generously without subsidizing harm. Money and time reveal your theology more than your creed. Put a small % of both where your future feels most alive. Education, care, art that clarifies, technology that humanizes, neighbors who need a bridge over a week that tried to break them. Clicks, dollars, minutes. Each is a vote in the probability parliament. Become a consistent voter for the world you claim to anticipate. Keep a ledger of resonance, not a diary of grievances, but a field journal of coherence. The exact sentence that unclenched a meeting, the song that dissolved an afternoon storm in your chest, the stranger's smile that arrived on the beat of your exhale. This is evidence gathering, not superstition. The mind respects its own data. When the ridge returns, and it will, you will have a map of moments that proves you are not naive, you are practiced. Let the body receive new instructions. When worry loops, hum softly. Vibration detangles thought from tissue. When sadness visits, lie belly down and imagine the planet breathing under you. Gravity is medicine for minds that float toward exile. When anger surges, give it channel. Push a wall, sprint 1 city block, write the unsent letter, and burn it. Energy that is moved does not have to masquerade as identity. Guard the silence phase as if it were a child sleeping. 15 minutes of no input, no words, no images, no plans is an altar where your next accuracy will place itself. In that stillness, the seed star breath is audible again. You hear the ring expand, feel symbols settle into tissues that were waiting, watch timelines braid and unbraid behind your eyelids until one strand glows with the right kind of inevitability. Finally, institute the 72-hour confirmation window. When a message feels luminous, don't chase it, host it. Over 3 rotations of sun and sleep, keep company with the same gentle practices: breath, language, ritual, repair. If the light was fantasy, it will flicker out without penalty. If it was instruction, it will refine rather than fade. Then act, not with frenzy but with fidelity. In this way, the frequency ceases to be an episode and becomes your ecosystem, a living method that lets you carry the city of silence wherever you walk. And the world learns your pace, the way water learns the shape of a vessel that loves it. Set everything down. Even the beautiful ideas, especially the clever explanations, lay them like tools after good work, palms empty, jaw unlatched, spine long, breath a slow tide rinsing the shore. Let quiet come closer than thought, it knows the way. Inhale and feel the thin film of noise lift from the surface of your mind, like morning mist off a lake. Exhale and watch the water forget the wind. No agenda, no project, only the soft authority of stillness, settling. You are not doing silence, you are letting silence do you. Notice the small sounds that remain, the pulse in your ear, the whisper of fabric, the building's breath. They are not interruptions, they are the perimeter of a sanctuary. Within it, attention loosens its fists and opens like a hand. There is a room behind your face. Enter. Bare floors, light without source, a bowl on a low table, half full of water. Sit. Listen until listening is the only thing left. Thoughts will arrive like birds. Do not chase or cage them. Let them cross the space and keep the air honest. The room is large enough for their brief errands. The bowl does not ripple. Feel how the quantum field loves this posture. Not the collapse of effort, but the easing of interference. Coherence grows here like moss quietly, inexorably, a green patience stitching stone to stone. You breathe, the breath breathes you, the boundary blurs. Observer loop becomes the simplest circle. Awareness, aware of awareness. A moon reflecting a moon, no argument between them. A memory taps kind, insistent, and you bow to it without standing. You place it on the table beside the bowl. It sighs once, like a coat shrugged from shoulders, then folds itself small and sleeps. There will be time later to ask its name, not now. Empty space is not empty. It is saturated with invitation. You feel the fine grain of reality under your fingertips, not as data, but as tenderness. The aurora that once rimmed your crown now descends as a soft shawl over the torso. Warmth gathers under the sternum and does not hurry to explain itself. Somewhere outside, a siren. Somewhere inside, a bell. The two are not enemies. The bell rings once, then again, farther in. With each ring, your fascia unknots another century of bracing. Ribs widen, eyes grow heavy, not with sleep, but with the dignity of rest. Let the prayer be wordless. Let the wordless be enough. Silence makes an honest inventory. You feel where you are still performing kindness instead of being it. You feel where your yes is clean and where it hides a small, frightened no. You do not rush to fix. The room will teach the posture that repairs without violence. Patience warm enough to thaw, truth cool enough to shape. A single breath becomes a shore. On the inhale, everything arrives. On the exhale, everything belongs. The sea keeps its promise to the moon. You keep your promise to the moment. That is all. Time thins. Not lost, but loosened. Seconds no longer stacked. They float like leaves in a slow eddy. You can choose any one of them, and it will hold. You choose this one. It holds. Listen deeper. Under the pulse, a wider rhythm. Under the rhythm, a hush that is not absence but origin. The hush has texture velvet mixed with wind, night mixed with ember. It speaks with no mouth. Remember, you do not answer. You are the answer. If a tear rises, let it crown and spill. Salt is a solvent for old armor. If a smile rises, let it be small and true. The face will know what to do when it is no longer hired to impress. Now, imagine the species pausing with you: kitchens, checkpoints, corridors, clinics, a planet-wide inhale finding its length, an exhale rediscovering gravity. Hear the collective shoulders descend by 1 invisible centimeter. Feel the hinge of history ease a degree. The lattice brightens without spectacle. This is how prophecy echoes, not by thunder alone, but by rooms like this multiplied until the quiet becomes the climate. The seed star at your center opens a fraction. One more ring of light lifts, slow as a tide, and crosses the room without touching anything, yet everything is touched. Symbols rotate again, simpler now, closer to bone. They do not demand. They take their places like constellations over a field that has finally gone, still enough to notice them. Stay 1 breath longer, then 1 more. When you rise, rise as if carrying water to someone thirsty. Do not spill, do not rush, do not explain. Let the silence continue walking inside you like a guest you trust with the keys. The world will speak first. You will answer second. In the gap, a universe will choose its next form. You do not return from the silence phase. You bloom out of it. The quiet you carried like a bowl now pours through you as a river, and every cell tilts its face toward the current. Activation is not an event falling upon you from above. It is a pressure from within meeting a permission from without. They recognize each other. They clasp. The clasp becomes light. Begin with the body, because the body is the altar that never lies. Heat gathers at the sternum as if a small sun were stepping closer. A coolness crowns the scalp like evening on a lake. Between them, a column forms subtle, supple, exact, and your posture arranges itself around it without negotiation. The spine learns a different honesty. Breath lengthens not as a technique, but as a consequence. The way a field of wheat ripples when wind decides. You are no longer trying to be coherent. Coherence is trying you on and finding that you fit. The seed star at your center rotates once, and with it, the room tilts a fraction toward meaning. Symbols that hovered become behaviors. The circle that touched your chest now instructs your hands, how they rest on a table, how they take another's fingers without ownership, how they release what was never yours to keep. The ring that lifted across the floor now instructs your voice, fewer words, truer pitch, pauses that land like rain on parched ground. Information density rises while effort falls. This is how quantum efficiency feels inside a mammal. A threshold reveals itself. Attending versus emitting. Until now you primarily attended to sensation, to silence, to the field's careful invitations. Now the field invites emission, not performance, but radiance. Your task is to let your coherence leak on purpose, to allow warmth and precision to exit your skin as if skin were a kindness, not a boundary. When you enter a room, tone precedes content. People stand a little straighter without knowing why. The conversation chooses the truer lane with less argument. Dogs look up, children relax, plants lean. This is not charisma, it is hygiene at scale. The observer loop upgrades again. You watch your attention, watching reality shape around it, and you notice the feedback arrive faster, like lightning closing distance to its thunder. Think generosity, and an old grievance softens at the edges in the person you had not yet forgiven. Think accuracy, and the next sentence sheds 2 unneeded clauses before it reaches your tongue. Think mercy, and your own jaw unclenches even before the apology you feared would never come. You are not orchestrating outcomes, you are becoming the kind of weather where certain outcomes are natural. Activation asks for action, and action starts small by design so that power cannot impersonate love. You send one message you have delayed, not to fix, but to tell the truth kindly and early. You move one resource toward a future you claim to trust. You choose one practice to guard, like a hearth, 15 minutes of naked silence, a nightly inventory of coherence, the refusal to speak against your own body even in jest. The field, delighted, multiplies your inches into miles and returns evidence that you are not naive, you are aligned. Collective effects sharpen. You notice how your glow finds its mates across the lattice. A stranger on a train meets your eyes and neither of you looks away. The moment holds without awkwardness because you are not shopping for a story. You are recognizing a wavelength. In that second, 2 lives receive a micro-upgrade to dignity. These are the transactions of the new economy, exchanges of presence that increase value for both parties without debt. Challenge visits to test sealant. An old habit arrives with persuasive timing. A delicious distraction offers you speed without soul. The algorithm of outrage knocks. You feel the tug and do not scold yourself for it. You breathe and ask the vow you made at the ridge to speak from inside your bones. I will not abandon my breath. I will tell the truth gently and early. I will choose the slower yes over the faster escape. The habit sighs and sits down. The distraction deflates into its real size. Outrage cannot metabolize your calm and wanders off hungry. Now attend to nonlocal courtesy. In the next 72 hours, you will be used as a conduit if you consent. Consent aloud. I consent to be coherent in ways that help without harm. With that, coincidences cluster. You think of someone for no reason. You write. They answer with the exact sentence you needed to hear, but refuse to ask for. You pause at a doorway. A person rounds the corner who would have collided with you and their day would have cracked. You buy 2 of something and discover the second belongs perfectly to the neighbor at your elevator who had forgotten their wallet. These are not errands of sainthood. They are proofs of entanglement behaving like grace. Let the activation seal not as lacquer but as living bark. It will thicken where it needs to, crack where growth demands, mark seasons without becoming armor. Before sleep, thank the organism that hosted today's experiment in accuracy. Upon waking, place a palm to the chest and renew the simple permission. Be radiant without theater. Be precise without cruelty. Be quiet enough to hear the next instruction when it arrives on the breath between your breaths. You do not carry the prophecy now, you are carried by it. And the carrying feels less like being lifted and more like being correctly weighted, gravity as belonging, destiny as fit. The city of silence travels with you. The ocean takes your cadence. The aurora keeps time above your crown. Walk gently. The door to the seal is already ajar. You feel how the day has been wearing a ring inside your chest, not ornament, but oath. The river you became in activation slows to a lucid current, and you stand on its bank with clean hands. This is where flights end and flights begin, where vows are not shouted but signed in breath. You let one breath arrive unhurried, let one breath depart unstolen, and in that cycle the seal finds you. The field does not ask for spectacle, it asks for fidelity. You offer it in 4 small promises: to favor coherence over performance, to choose one true breath before every threshold, to tell the kindest truth you can carry without dilution, and to leave a little more order in each room than you found. These are not lofty, they are portable. You can keep them in a pocket and touch them when old weather gathers. Close your eyes and notice the city of silence settling into architecture. Spine a column, ribs an arcade, heart a steady lantern in an inner square. The ocean of probability combs itself along your cadence. Waves keep time with your vow. Above, the aurora you wear like a shawl hums a key that fits your name. Nothing is added, nothing is removed. What is false loosens and slides away like a cloak. You no longer need to pretend you are cold. Let memory reconcile with destiny. You don't disown the versions of you that braced, hurried, or hid. You bless them for surviving the weather that taught you to listen. They stand now at the water's edge and hand you their last tools. Patience that can wait without bitterness. Courage that can move without theater. You take them with gratitude and feel the seed star flicker, expand, and steady a hearth rather than a flare. The lattice brightens. You sense the others. Kitchens pausing, corridors exhaling, strangers recognizing a wavelength and relaxing by one invisible degree. You will not meet most of them, and you don't have to. Entanglement is introduction enough. The proof of your belonging is the ease with which your warmth travels. The miracle is not that the world changes when you do. The miracle is that you discover changing is what the world is doing through you. Now speak the vow aloud, not as spell, but as signature. I will not abandon my breath. I will tell the truth gently and early. I will choose the slower, yes, over the faster escape. I will keep company with silence until it speaks. Let the words pass your lips like oars, dipping once and catching. Feel the boat take the river. Open your eyes softly. The room has not transformed, and yet it has. Chairs sit more honestly. Light behaves like a blessing. Even your shadow seems relieved to follow you without argument. You do not need new symbols. You need only to keep the old ones alive by living them. Accuracy, warmth, permission, repair, these are the seals. This is the seal. Walk forward without rushing, as if carrying water to someone thirsty. Let your presence be the quiet architecture others remember, standing inside when their courage returns. If doubt knocks, offer it a chair and the same breath you offered yourself. Even doubt is soothed by a room that does not lie. The prophecy has been spoken. Let it unfold through you.